I'd like to call to order the meeting of Wednesday, January 13th of Appointments and Ordinances at 5:40 p.m. via WebEx. Roll call of members. President Ricketts.
Present.
Councilor Forgy.
Here.
Councilor Bottomley.
Here.
Councilor Mayo.
Here.
Oh,
with that, we have a full attendance. This meeting is being recorded by Appointments and Ordinance via WebEx. If there's any other persons present or doing the same, please notify me at this time. I'm seeing none. Let me check the chat. Thank you for that, Otis, Councilor Wheeler. I see no one that is recording. Can I have someone accept the minutes from December 9th?
so moved, Ricketts.
Second, Forgy.
Motion has been made and seconded. Are there any changes, omissions?
No.
Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The meeting will be, those are accepted. Motions, we can move right into this. Councilor Bottomley, would you like to read some of the motions for me this evening?
Yes.
It's the first one we're going to open is page 4.
There it is. I've got this, the correct one. I move that the Greenfield City Council, pursuant to Charter Section 2-10, affirms the following appointment by the mayor to the planning board as a full member. Mark Maloney for a term to expire June 30th, 2021.
Second, Ricketts.
That motion has been made and seconded. If you read in your packets, this is a moving someone from the standby, what is the correct terminology? The
Alternative.
Alternate. Thank you. Alternate, there it is. Alternate to filling the term of someone that left for the remaining term, and then will be reappointed, or if all goes for the end of that term in 21. Anyone have any comments on this mayoral appointment?
Yes. Councilor Maloney was someone I got to work with on council. So this is great. I'm so excited. I went to a planning board meeting a couple weeks ago, got to see him back in action, his old Maloney self, and this is good. This is a win-win. So yes.
Anyone else have any other comments on this alternate being moved to full member? I also have had good experiences with former Councilor Maloney, and I've been surrounded by Councilor Maloney's for 20 years. They just happen to be two different people. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Anyone abstaining? So we will send a positive affirmation to full council.
Perfect.
Councilor Bottomley, page 6.
Yep. I move that the Greenfield City Council, pursuant to Charter Section 2-10, affirms the following reappointments by the mayor to the local cultural council. John Lunt, term expires December 31st, 2022. Linda McKierney, term expires December 31st, 2023. Andrew Neiswander, term expires December 31st, 2023.
Second, Rickett.
That motion has been made and seconded. Is there anyone that would like to speak towards any of these reappointments?
No, that's good.
All of these members are great contributors to our community. Linda McInerney has been, no, that's all right, John. No problem. We've all been there. I would have trouble with the third one, so you did well. Anyone else that would like to, any comments or questions?
Nope.
Seeing none, all those in favor of a positive affirmation of the three candidates?
Okay. Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we will forward a unanimous positive affirmation to full council. Councilor Bottomley, page 8.
I move that the Greenfield City Council, pursuant to Charter Section 2-10, affirms the following appointment by the mayor to the Retirement Board, Mary Ann Fisk, for a term to expire December 31st, 2022.
Second, 4G.
That motion has been made by Bottomley, seconded by 4G. Any discussion on this candidate? Councilor 4G.
Thank you. Mary Ann Fisk was the retirement board analyst for the city of Greenfield for many years. She is an absolutely delightful person to work with. She is extremely knowledgeable, knows her field very, very well. And I see this as a big win for the retirement board and for the city of Greenfield. Thank you.
That's good.
Thank you. Any other comments or anyone like to add? I would just like to also say, in my early years as a counselor and throughout my first presidency as the council, she was just an incredible asset to the town of Greenfield. I think this is a wonderful addition to the city of Greenfield. Anyone else have any comments or anything they'd like to add? Seeing none, all those in favor of a positive affirmation?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send a positive unanimous affirmation to the full council. All right, let me go back. I think, John, I think that's it. Councilor Bottomley, I think that's it right now for motions. So I appreciate your help in that field. Next, we have two discussions. One is the proposed ordinance to establish a community preservation committee. Councilor Wheeler, are you still here?
Yeah, where is he?
Yes, I am.
Councilor Wheeler, would you like to, as this has your name on it, would you like to entertain us with some explanation and thought as we move forward with this piece?
I'd be happy to, although I may struggle to entertain you with it, but I'll try.
I'm easily entertained lately, so go for it.
That's a good thing. This was drafted, I drafted this in consultation with the Community Preservation Coalition based on their sample CPC ordinance document. I also compared it to surrounding towns that have existing community preservation committees. Many of the, much of the language in it is called for by statute. So Mass General Law has many rules around the way that a community preservation committee is set up. So there's not a ton of leeway here, but there certainly is leeway around the appointment, the way that the appointments are staggered. For example, I staggered them based on the coalition's recommendation, which means that there would never be turnover of more than 3 members in a year, because that could destabilize the committee. So it gets a little bit complicated in the first round of appointments, because you'd be appointing some people for 1 year, some for 2, some for 3. But after that, it's all 3-year terms and becomes pretty simple. The 5 members, 5 of the members are called for by state law. And so those are the ones that are a representative of Conservation Commission, Planning Board, Historical Commission, Housing Authority, and Rec Commission. And so those are fairly straightforward, I believe. Though it gives you, though, the ability to have a board of between 5 and 9 members. So those 5 are required, but you can have as many as 9. That's what they recommend. So that's what I put into the proposal. And the other 4 members are at-large members. And the way that I wrote the proposal, 2 of them would be named by the mayor, 2 of them by the city council president. There is a piece of language there that I neglected to include, but which the executive director of the coalition recommended that we include. And that is that the at-large members not be elected or appointed to any other positions in the city. And he said that's for a couple reasons, including the amount of work that it is to be on this committee at the beginning. And the reason is this committee will initially be tasked with conducting a study of the needs in the community for these various, open space, historical preservation, affordable housing, and recreation. So that initial study is going to take some time. They're going to need to talk to some experts and deliver a report. So that's why they encourage you to put that language in that restricts members to not being already holding positions. Okay. And I can provide that if you want it. And beyond that, maybe I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has around it.
Sure. Councilor Wheeler, first of all, I'd like to just thank you for having such a thorough document. And not being my forte, I went through it, and I have just a couple of questions, and then I'll open it up. So let's act like I know nothing about this at all right, which helps. We are required to have this committee, correct?
That is correct.
As part of the state reimbursement and funding and law, once we entered into the CPA, we have to have this committee. And the committee is established, as you said, with 5 required members with the option of adding the 4 others, correct? Is that how it?
That's correct. That's required by Mass General Law, Chapter 44B.
In addition to the language that you just spoke on, where you followed direction and not law and added 4, was there anything else within this that you added that wasn't required? Is there anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, let me go through it right now. And
I mean, I'm not quizzing you. I just wanted to know that if there was, I know you looked at peer groups, which is not necessarily statute, but recommendation.
Yes. Well, generally the language that I included there is from the coalition's suggested language. So that certainly is not required by statute. Um, but the the cost estimates piece, I believe, and the duties are actually, in general, that language actually comes from the Mass General Law. So although it may not be required, it's pretty standard.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open the floor a bit to any of the counselors that have, on the committee questions. Obviously, we have plenty of time to work on this and act on this, but this is a great introduction so we can proceed. So, counselors or any counselor, even if you are not on my committee, if you have any questions or comments, Counselor Forgy?
Thank you. I'd like to know if the CPA, Otis, needs to be included into charter language, which we're both working on right now. Do you see that as happening?
Good question. Great question. I personally don't think you would want to include it in the charter for the reason that the voters are it can be put back before the voters. If there was some kind of outcry and it was found to be really unpopular, you can pull it back the same way that you put it in. So it could go before the voters and they could retract the CPA. And so by ensconcing it in the charter, you might make it more permanent and more difficult to remove than you would want to. I did, in my remarks to Chair Singer, note that that it was there because it is relevant to some language in the charter around multiple member bodies. So there are a couple considerations there.
Little follow up on that, Councillor Wheeler. It would then become part of the code, which was our thing, because it's an ordinance or you know what I mean. It was a voted ordinance, so it would become part of that code, which is much more malleable with voting and changes.
Yes.
Councillor Forgy, follow up.
Yes, I do have a follow-up. Who is, I was noticing the budgetary pieces of this, the money pieces. Is the CPA audited under the auspices of the city audit?
That would probably be a question for Liz Gilman.
Okay.
And so you might want to write it down and send it to her. My assumption is that that this would not be the first board that has a sort of allowance. But I'm struggling off the top of my head to think of another one.
And we can request that through this committee, and then initially, and that could be generated in Ways and Means also, to find out as we move towards full council.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Any other councilors? President Ricketts, any comments?
Okay, yes. Thank you for all the work on this, Councilor Wheeler. So I do have a couple questions. I know that past president Timothy Farrell is interested, and so is Garth Schoenfeld. So as long as they're not currently on a town or city board or commission, they would still be open to be chosen either by the mayor or myself. Like what happens? Do you give that list of 4 to the mayor first, or?
Yeah, so first of all, that piece of the language would need to be amended into the text that I submitted. So it's not actually there yet, although I do have it and would encourage you to consider adding it.
Okay.
Just to
Yeah,
speak.
let me just clarify. As Councilor Wheeler mentioned, presently that piece is not in the language that's before
Right.
us.
Right.
And if it becomes, as he recommended, we thought, is anyone else freezing? Just as I see my screen keeps freezing.
No.
Are we all
So
doing okay? Okay.
No.
Um,
so I understood that part, but I just wanted to go over the part again about the mayor and the president both, get some
Yeah,
choices. The other
sure.
thing is I see that they had staggered. So I wondered, once you start this, is there no sort of a clock on it? Because I kind of like was hoping they'd all be able to work on it together in the beginning so they could sort of get on the same page. But
yeah. So the way that it should work is that they would all be appointed at the same time, and so
Mhm.
they could all start working together at the same time. Um,
Then they drop off.
it's just that, say a certain person would be appointed for 1 year, and then after that it would become a 3-year term. So, that person, you might want to appoint them again immediately because 1 year is just not very long. But that sort of schedule sets it up so that as it gets going, you'll have the regular turnover. And then speaking to, just the examples of the two citizens you mentioned, um, they would be appointed. The way that I wrote it and the way that they suggest you write it is two appointments by the mayor, two by the city council president. Those could happen as soon as the language is adopted. Um, someone like Tim Farrell is commissioner for GSET, but GSET is a
Oh,
quasi
right.
public-private, body.
Oh,
So
right.
there'd be some interpretation there. And again, you might want to consider that before adopting this language that I'm suggesting.
Oh, that's a good idea. And so when you look at this also, what is your thought of a timeline? Like, when are you hoping that they pull together and this starts? No.
Right. Um, well, what I would say is that the money is going to start coming in this year. So
Okay.
it would behoove the city to set up this committee so that it can do the work to enact the study and deliver the report that would be required in order to do anything with that money. So if I were you, I would work with the goal of getting this before council in the next, say 1 to 4 months. If it were
Okay.
me, I would try to do it before budget season. Um, Obviously, if you hit a snag, you hit a snag. But if you were able to do that, I think you'd be able to put them in a good position so that in FY 22, they might be able to make some small appropriations if they saw um, the need for them.
Okay. Oh, thank you. That's important information. And then how does like the reporting out go? Like, do we wait for them to get a certain, like, do they do it for 2 or 3 months and come back to council? Or like, how do you suggest that, we all learn like where they're at all times? And is it our purview over them, or is this to the mayor they report? Like, how do you see it really
Yeah.
set up?
Yeah, so the structure of it by law is that they can't make any appropriations without city council approval. Um, Certainly, I would hope that the mayor would have input to these decisions, but it's city council approving the funds, and they can't spend anything without, other than their up to 5% allowance on administration. They can't spend anything without council approval. So probably that looks like once a year they come to council and um, you know, put forth their proposals for spending. Um, I don't think that would preclude them from making a request mid-year if necessary.
Mhm.
I would think that CRE might be a good committee to interface with them and request that the chair or a representative attend CRE every so often to give them updates on the sorts of activities that they're engaging in. And one last thing, the way that the CPA is structured, generally the expenditures come from requests. So generally, you would have someone like, and this is especially true of affordable housing, you'd have someone, an organization like Habitat for Humanity, say, we have this project, maybe we need a certain match in order to make this happen in your community. We're putting this forward for your consideration. But then with recreation, that might be something where Christy Moore or whoever the representative is says, wow, there's this, great trail that people keep asking us, about, and can we get it going? So there is some differentiation there.
Thank you.
Okay. And then my last follow-up is, I'm wondering, well, first of all, you sit on council, so are you going to be able to be at like the initial meeting to like do the kickoff and kind of explain everything instead of like just giving reams of paper and having them begin? Like, I feel like it would be great if you could be in like the initial talking session with them, but is that even allowed?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I mean, they would have to choose a chair, and then the chair would need to recognize me. But if that were to happen, I'd love to, be there. But also the Community Preservation Coalition is very responsive, and they help with the administration of the CPA. So I think there'll be a resource that the committee will want to connect with and definitely work with.
All right. And there's no council presentation written in anywhere?
No, there's none written in, and like I said, it's really discouraged actually.
Okay.
Although it's not, I don't believe it's disallowed, but it is discouraged.
Okay.
Thank you.
Not
Councilor
that
Wheeler.
I'm trying to hook you in, but I'm trying to hook you in.
Councilor Wheeler, one other question that I thought of was, it's our purview in A&O to send this out to, when we cross over with a planning board situation or whatever, we send it for their opinion. When you were looking at these peer committees, is it standard policy to send it to the mayor's office before it moves to full council for comment or language or anything in that direction? Would that be the appropriate partner to send this to make sure that I'm not questioning your language. I just want to make sure that we've done. Would that be, this is new, so new always has no game plan.
Of course. This has gone to, let's see, I've run this by Danny Letourneau, and I believe the mayor has seen it.
Okay.
That said, certainly if you want to give it one more, say we're gonna, A&O intends on putting this to a recommendation at such and such meeting.
Yes.
Do you have any input? Would you like to attend? That seems totally appropriate.
Okay.
There's a tiny, the thing about like a member of the rec commission, the law actually says that needs to be someone from the park commissioners or equivalent. So, I mean, I did a tiny bit of interpretation there to say it was the rec department. Right. I think it's pretty obvious, but you never know. Maybe someone has a different idea.
Maybe they think it should be DPW. So when we're done today, I'll ask, for recommendation that we forward this to the executive side for a review before we bring it to full council. Just so if they've looked at it and they're happy with it, I want to have that buy-in as public knowledge that they're not saying, well, we never saw this document, and all 7 of the 9 are in the mayor's purview because it's rec commission, and you know what I mean, those kind of functions. So, but that's just my recommendation as the chair to send it. I would just like someone else to say that they saw the document as we normally would send it to. Councilor Forte, I believe, had another question earlier.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Gwynn. Uh, I noticed that the length of a term of office is 3 years. I wondered if the Mass General Law that governs CPA mentions that, or, and this is a bigger question that is going to get into charter too, or should we be now changing these to 4-year terms because our mayor is on a 4-year schedule? So, again, it begs the argument of, does the mayor get to put to have input on this for 4 years during her term rather than 3 years where she makes another appointment and then a new mayor may come in, if you understand. And that kind of is a broader question, and I think we need to ask at charter as well.
Any comment, Councilor Wheeler?
Yeah, I would say that's a good thing to be thinking about. And it might make sense to, I think I would actually have to draw this out to figure out with the staggered terms, how many appointments would a mayor generally have. I think that a 3-year, my sort of initial reaction is that 3 years is a long time to sit on a committee that does a lot of work. I think this is an active committee because you really have authority over, not authority over expenditures, but over the recommendation to make expenditures in a way that most committees don't have. That's going to be my question, but I think it's a great thing to talk about.
I think I would agree with that. Earlier you were correct, Councilor Wheeler, when Ricketts. That staggered situation is exactly how when we first had the council move over from a 28 council to our present formation, the at-large seats were all staggered. I ran for like a 1-year term, and we talked about it. Tim Farrell took the 2-year term, and then it was a 3-year term, and that's how they did it with at-large. We all had a different staggering, and then it worked its way into what it is today. But it's the same thing on startup. The staggering gets it to even out and be correct looking forward. Mm-hmm. Was there anyone else that hasn't spoken this evening from the committee that has any questions, comments with what we have before us?
I've spoken, but...
Oh, I was just making sure. Councilor Ricketts, of course, President Ricketts, if you'd continue. Okay.
So, Councilor Wheeler, this is nothing about your document, but I just wondered, were you as surprised as I was at the final vote? And like, we know that this is not going to go away because this is really what the city wants. I was just wondering what your initial reaction was. I thought it might pass, but not like this.
Yeah, I was surprised. I think I was quoted in the recorder with probably the least inspiring quote I've ever made. It was something like, I don't know, maybe it'll pass, maybe it won't. If it doesn't, someone will bring it back. It won't be me. I don't know. So, this was something that President Reno put forward and was passionate about, and I saw the benefit and was passionate about it too. But no, I didn't think it passed. I actually, the most exciting thing about election night, which otherwise I found to be generally stressful, and there was no actual news on election night, was me asking the town committees whether anyone was going to be delivering the results of the vote for the CPA And everyone said, no, we don't have anyone there. Normally there'd be people at the high school checking the
Right.
votes with the numbers. But,
That's
because
true.
of the virus, they're just like, nah, we're going to skip it. So,
Yeah.
so I had I got to go down there and be standing next to the recorder. That was it. Nobody else was there. And, delivered the results to the executive director of the coalition because he wanted to put it out for the State House News. So yeah, I was surprised, but these are why we put things before the voters, is to figure out what do you actually think.
And
That's true.
I don't normally say this publicly very often, but I was so wrong because I believe truly when we were getting beat up about spending money on projects, and we don't have to name them because we have some major ones, everyone was talking about it's going to cost us money. It's going to cost us money. And this is actually going to directly cost them more money than those projects are directly. And they voted it with a 70% majority. It just kind of blew me away, and I would have been wrong in my thought that people would not have wanted this. And if you and and I mean, we didn't disagree because it was one of those things that we were going to vote for it. I just thought it was poor timing, and once again, we were proven different. So now we move forward, we do it correctly, and we use the money for the things that it's meant to be. Anyone else have any questions for Councillor Wheeler before we let him step down after we're hammering him here about all this?
I have one last thing. I will forward. Well, I guess I'll send forward to Tammy the email from the coalition that has the sample language. So in case and you all can see it, and yes. I'll highlight that piece about members who are not serving on other elected or appointed positions, and then I'll leave it up to this body about whether you want to put that in at a future date.
I'm going to take this in a different direction for a moment. When we reassemble this committee 1 month from today, none of you are going to be here but me. It is my thinking that we get this language resubmitted that Councillor Wheeler recommended, that we then send the language to the executive side to have their opinion, and then I will, at that point, bring it forward to the new A&O and come with a recommendation. And I would ask that the 4 of you that aren't going to be joining the new A&O, when we bring it to the floor, I won't be able to say that you sent a negative or a positive recommendation, because at that point you won't be on this committee, but you will have more insight as you lived it tonight, and then we go forward. Does anyone have any objection or concerns with my thought pattern on that?
No, I think you have a great committee. Councillor Dolan, Councillor Stempel, very vocal, and I think that they will bring this forward. And I know where Councillor Wheeler lives, so yeah. And we'll have lots of interaction.
You can bring me back next time, and I can do all this all over again.
Yes, I was going to try to avoid that. Councillor Wheeler, no, I would like it if you obviously as we move forward and we get the language, and we'll have you back. And I would imagine that the next time we bring it back, we'll have a recommendation and we'll be prepared to make that recommendation. I just felt tonight was a good introduction. Have you there? Have this committee that has done a fine job in the past year be able to throw in some questions, and then we could address them. Is there anyone else that has any points on this? No. Seeing none, then I will just we'll forward this to further discussion at next meeting when we convene with the new A&O committee. And Councilor Wheeler, I'll send you a notification, obviously, again, and ask for your input if they have any questions, because obviously they will. And the document you spent time doing was very well thought out. And I could tell reading it that it was something that came from a recognized body because of the language. Anything else?
No, thank you so much, Otis.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And thanks for helping me with this meeting opening, Councilor Wheeler.
Got it. Good night, everybody.
As we move forward,
Councilor Wheeler.
Bye.
as we move forward with this committee, I would like to ask each of you, as we looked at the ordinance review, you were all sent chapters of the ordinance review so we could bring that forward. And it is assigned to all of you. If you saw in the minutes, I was continuing to assign. Could each of you give me an update on where you are in your portion? Because I'd like to get those reviews on record to a certain portion so I can then pick it up. Obviously, the review was supposed to have taken place in 20 or fiscal 21. And now I've talked about an extension, but I don't want your labor to not be, I don't want it to be overlooked because Councilor Bottomley was looking at things and Councilor Ricketts was looking at things and Councilor Forgy was looking at things. So could we just have an update on where we are? And if anybody wants to go first, it's fine, just so I know how we're going to proceed with this, because I would then look at it a little differently when we get to council floor.
Okay. Well, I'll be honest. I don't have a lot that I've actually done on it, but I did attend EDC last night, and between that and the charter meeting that I attended even the night before that, a lot of these things were discussed, and it was great. So Danny Letourneau did a lot of preparation for all of these ordinances. So the information that we got an email 2 days ago or something, right there is helpful. So I think we're just going to have to pull all those pieces together in the body of the ordinances to get them ready for the new A&O, along with the tenant, the landlord piece, so we can bring it all forward next month. But yeah,
Well, the
EDC
ordinance
was
review-
amazing last night talking about these things that we're actually doing. They did a lot last night discussing it.
Because if you recall, we were looking at the changes that have come in since the last ordinance review. Councilor Ford, did you know when that last review of ordinance was? Do you know how that timetable worked? I can't remember if that was it's a 5-year review or I just can't recall, but that's unimportant. But the point is that those sticky notes that were put in the books, we have to bring forward, and each department has been forwarding them to us. And I'm just looking at Councilor Forgy was reviewing some of the licensing commission. Councilor Ricketts was looking at Recreation Commission, Parking Commission, and Council on Aging. So I just want to make sure those pieces, if you've done work on them, if you could update me, you don't have to do it in this session, maybe, just so I know where we are, and if we have to, if you caught anything that was sent to you that needs to be looked at.
Okay, I'll write it up and send it to you.
Perfect. And Councilor Bottomley?
Yeah, one thing that may be helpful is I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything, because it seems like some of the DPW stuff just trickled in and various emails. So I don't know if that's something the clerk's office could do, or I just want to make sure I didn't miss pieces of it.
Right.
Not that I've done a tremendous amount of work, but whoever is going to take over, it was kind of a little bit piecemeal.
Okay, I just want to make sure that if you had discovered anything in your discovery, a lot of this is, the work is done by, as I discussed earlier, and I discussed this with the executive side. We don't know the ins and outs of the DPW. I don't expect Councilor Bottomley to know the new sewer codes for the state of Massachusetts, or the new regulations on width of highway. You know what I mean? That's not your purview. But it's to make sure that we're addressing everything that was sent, and there wasn't anything blatantly wrong, like in the middle of someone's write-up, it says free chocolate milk. You know what I mean? We got to make sure that we're in that vein. So I want to be able to say that. So let me tell you what I will do. As President Ricketts just said, she'll forward to me where she's with those. I will reach out to the council clerk and see what we have received, which will help us to know where we are.
Okay.
We might have departments that haven't come to us as of yet. And I don't want to say that where we are now, we haven't seen anything. And I know Councilor Forgy mentioned that some of the stuff that was going up for charter review really didn't pertain to charter review. It pertained to code review. And so and that's what Councilor Ricketts just mentioned. Some of this stuff, as you go to different departments, they don't really know. Like, I know Christy Moore from Recreation was one that was going to update. A lot of the things she brought forward to Charter Commission weren't really Charter Commission. They're changes for ordinance. The big difference that we have to make sure we're up on, and this is what I'll go to clerk with, and I'll work with President Ricketts. If there are changes that have not been adopted, but they're changes that are going to be recommended, that's not the same as us reviewing things to make sure they're in the code that have already been approved. They don't necessarily go into the code. They get the councils before me voted on these, and they were passed, and they became ordinances, but they don't jump into the code book immediately. They sit on a note until they're entered into our code book, and they are ordinance because we passed them. So there's a little bit difference. And I want to make sure we are correct in that. Some have to be brought forward and be voted on because they are not an ordinance. They are a change that has not occurred. On the other hand, we have to make sure that the ones that have already passed by town, by vote, by committee, by council are included in the new code. And so there's a little bit of difference if everyone understands where I'm going with that.
Yeah. So I just spent this weekend cleaning my entire council email. And so I've always had folders, but I made new folders. So now I have 2021 A&O. So I put in everything that we receive from all the different departments.
Oh, excellent.
About the A&O. And then I have my 2020 A&O of things that, we just voted on that, I don't even no longer need. So I tried to piece that all together so I knew. And then, like I said, when I went to EDC last night, they were talking about some of the different pieces, licensing and stuff a little bit. And so Danny is a wealth of information. So I think at one of your first A&O meetings, when you're introducing this to the new members, you should actually have Director Letourneau come to that meeting.
And I will get some clarity on the two channels. One is things that we have to vote on to change, and those that are being absorbed because they're just statutory changes in code and things like that move forward without our involvement. Councilor Forgy, did you have something to add? Okay. Anyone else that has any? I just wanted to update. I will do some homework on this. I will get in and talk to the clerk and make sure, and I will follow up with President Ricketts to make sure that her and I's expectations as we move this committee forward are on the same page.
Okay.
Looking back, I'm sorry. So that was ordinance review. Is there any new business that needs to be discussed this evening?
No, can I speak out of turn for one moment? Because I
Yeah.
do have Counselor
You're my,
Mayo.
you're my boss. You can talk about anything
Okay.
you want.
I do have Counselor DeSorga, Mayo, and Forgy all on. And so we're all going to get trained into how to start a meeting. And it was so funny because I sent an email recently just saying, I want to get trained too, because I want to be a backup for all of you as well in case something happens. But at the same time, if something goes on, we can jump into each other's
Yeah.
meeting maybe and just jumpstart it. So
Yes.
uh, I just want this team strong. So I haven't been trained yet. So as soon as you can get trained as well, I mean, we have a few weeks, but um, I just don't want to let it slip from my mind. And I know you won't either. So thank you.
I will actually be in town hall very soon to figure out why all of my passwords are getting rejected. I couldn't get anything to go in tonight. And I called this morning and I was unable to connect with IT, and you can't just walk in. So I was unable to get it corrected. And we thought we had it until I tried to log in and it didn't know who I was. So, but we will get on. It's really fairly easy to do once you get the correct passwords and stuff, but I just could not get it to function this evening. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Um, seeing no, is there any old business to be discussed? Before I close this meeting and ask for an adjournment, I would just like to thank all of you that participated with me in the last year and my first year back at council. It was my pleasure. You're all moving on. So I wish you all the best where you land in other committees. And I thank you for, doing what we did. I thought we had a good year, and I appreciate all your effort. And I look forward to working with you on the full council floor. And we'll see you all in the real arena. Next meeting should be February 10th at 5:30. I'll be there, and we'll go from there. Motion to adjourn.
And
Oh, go ahead, Councilor Ricketts.
yeah, you may have to ask the new members about the time because this was me begging for that early 5:30 time. So
I will. I'll put that out to a request. 5:30 could be inconvenient for someone's working hours if they so happen to, work. So I will ask that, and I appreciate that input.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn.
Second by Forgy, and thank you, Dan, for your leadership this last year.
Thank you.
You had a lot of newbies.
My
so
pleasure.
you've done very well.
Thank you. A meeting adjourned at 6:31 p.m.